Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network, for the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews. Press 1. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Popcorn Talk, Anatomy of a Movie. Today we are dissecting Cameron Crowe's romantic comedy, Aloha. I am your host, Marisa Serafini. Joining me, I have...
Hi, guys. This is Sara, Stretton.
Okay, Cameron Crowe. We know he's a director famous for romantic comedies. He's had Jerry Maguire, a whole list.
My favorite, Almost Famous.
Yes, Almost Famous. I mean, he's a very well-known director for this type of genre.
Not just well-known, well-respected.
Yes.
I think that most people... If you get a Cameron Crowe project, you are excited about it. It's not someone who normally inspires any type of doubt about what is going to come forth. He has an interesting take kind of on characters typically. I think that he does come out with kind of your not so everyday typicals. I mean, you can talk about one of my first loves for Cameron Crowe was Almost Famous, and you just looked at kind of Kate Hudson's character in Penny Lane and the different layers kind of that he gave her and the themes that came through that movie. You look at Jerry Maguire and the layers that were given to the... I really like his characters.
Yes.
And his way of typically storytelling. For me, though, if we're going to get into overall thoughts on the movies, saw Aloha, saw it this week, so after all of the negative press it's been getting, really tried to be like, nope, I'm going to see this. It's Cameron Crowe. I'm going to keep an open mind. There are definitely some things I liked this movie about, like why he chose to tell this story. There are also some things that I understand why it's not getting rated that highly. I do want to talk about the negative press that's out there because I think I have a little bit of a different opinion than what's being pushed. But what is your overall opinion of this movie?
I gotta admit, I was very excited going into Aloha and watching when they first released the official trailer back in February 2015. I was really excited. Cameron Crowe, knowing I loved Vanilla Sky and Jerry Maguire, I was like, okay, he has another movie to look forward to. The cast is an amazing lineup. We have serious Academy Award nominated, winning, and a great performance, great lineup of people. So I was very excited for that. I was like, a lot of talent, and then just probably a fun story to boot. And so I was very excited. And then when it was released, I was very upset at what people were already saying. And I think it was the whole power of word of mouth. And, it takes one person to poison the well. And one perception of a film could poison everyone else's perceptions. So we'll definitely get into it. But I went into it, I was like, I don't care. I'm still going to see it because I've always wanted to watch it. And my problems with the film, I did love certain aspects of it, but my issues with the film had nothing to do with what the media was saying.
I agree.
The actual technical aspects of filmmaking in general. So let's get into it.
I'm glad we're kind of on that same page. I mean, might as well talk about the biggest story out there kind of first, which has been the racial diversity issue, the whitewashing of Hawaii. In particular, I think it's pointed at Emma Stone's casting as being a quarter Asian.
Her mother was half Chinese.
I think it's a quarter.
Yeah. She was a quarter Hawaiian and quarter Chinese. Her character had a lot of different ethnic backgrounds.
Yes.
But her character is not fully Asian.
Correct. I think that this is my sum up opinion of this. when I think there's too much negative attention on Emma Stone's casting. Because to me, I don't think that your genetic blood has to be completely identical to whatever you're saying to believe. What I want is believability. To me, they said that she was a quarter, I took it as she was a quarter of some sort of Asian, Pacific Islander, Hawaiian, whatever. And so it's very realistic to me that you don't see that on someone's appearance. That does not bother me. I am of mixed descent. I go to different countries all the time, and not all the time, but when I do, I oftentimes get interpreted as that race, which I am oftentimes not. Right. For instance, my mother gets half the people who meet my mom think she's part Asian, and she is not at all. And so to me, it's about the believability. It shouldn't be a requirement in your genetic blood to fit a part because of your exact makeup. Yeah. Like, that's not what believability is what they're trying to sell. On the other side, I think how he framed this movie, storytelling wise, especially with an introduction that was archival footage, heavily pointing towards Hawaiian culture, the influence, the impact that Hawaii's had in history, framed this movie to be about Hawaii from the very get-go. And then what happened is we saw a movie that it was used as almost like a prop rather than part of the story, in my opinion. I think that there were like elements of like, it was like set decoration where they would have Alei and the hula at the
Hawaii was a backdrop for the film. I saw it as just a location.
Mm-hmm. I saw it as just a location in the storytelling of the film. However, in the title and in the presentation of that first minute and a half, I thought that it was leading into a different story. So that is my problem with the Hawaiian representation, because I do think when you sit down in those seats, you see the title and you see that first, whatever it is, minute and a half of different shots, you are expecting to get a very heavily influenced Hawaiian culture picture. And I don't think we got that. I think it's spruced in, makes it look pretty at certain areas. Whatever. My problem is I do not have a problem with Emma Stone being cast as this character. It's neither. More about the storytelling of how he used Hawaii wasn't fully utilized.
I agree on a lot of, if not all that points. I'm Asian, but I didn't see Emma Stone's character being offensive whatsoever. And if you think about this is America, our generations is so used to being blended now. Mm-hmm. And we should be, as Americans, because I am an American as well, we should be accepting of different racial cultures. Mm-hmm. And that's what got me upset, that if you pride yourself as an American, you should allow this to happen. It's like, it had nothing to do with her performance, just physical appearance, and which I found very superficial and lacking any objective reasoning to. It would be a different
story if they put Emma Stone in this movie and told the story of that she was 100% Asian and tried to pass that off. Yeah. I'm not saying go do that, because that's crossing the line of believability. But like, look at Rachel McAdams. I don't know what ethnicity she actually is. I know she looks like she is some sort of Caucasian. But if you put her on film and you told me she was Irish, you told me she was German, I'm not going to dissect her blood and find out what she actually is. If you come on and you try and tell me that she is 100% from, I don't know, Egypt, I don't think she looks Egyptian. So I'm not going to believe it, so I have a problem. I'm a strong proponent of just make it believable. This is storytelling. This is fiction. We are not creating a documentary. I don't need blood to match up with the exact character description. I just need to believe that it could be that person.
I agree. And a lot of people were also upset that not only is Emma Stone's character, Allison Ng, part Hawaiian and part Asian, but also part Hawaiian, where a lot of people threw flack at that, because we know that Emma Stone herself is very Caucasian, Native American born, and the fact that she's also now this another whole racial mix that adds a whole nother set of issues. And my thing is, for the way that they portrayed Hawaii and the culture and the people for as little to somewhat. They did. It was never in a negative light. It was in a positive light. They showed hula. They showed the music. And they even mentioned all the lores and the legends. And I didn't see it in negativity whatsoever. It was more.
I agree. It wasn't negative. It just wasn't enough. It just wasn't, to me, to the point that it was important. It didn't transform the story enough to me that it made an impact. For instance, I think we could have had this same movie, almost the exact same effects, same theme, same plot, and set it in Florida. It was very similar. I wanted the weight of Hawaii to be more. I thought that like the legends and stuff were mentioned, but it didn't feel like a grounded theme. And I think part of that is also, for me, the lack of the book endings of Bradley Cooper's opening monologue about the opening sky, and about also how that transformed kind of into this theme of him being this mythological representation of this mythological figure from Hawaiian lore who arrived, or not but figure from Hawaiian lore that arrived, and I didn't see that come in at the end. So to me, it was a fallen plot line, and that was very much tied into Hawaii and the sky and the myths and legends and histories. And I was like, well, since you're not finishing that story for me, it's not important.
I did see it in a slightly different way, as a character arc in a way, because of his opening dialogue. It showed that he was he loved the sky for, just for the love of it and the passion behind what he got in, what interested him, satellite, and there was genuine love for it. And then it was tarnished by billionaires in the industry, and then turning the sky into weapons and weaponizing it and so forth. And then near the end, showing that he sold into the weapons and the billionaires. He became what he disliked about it. And then now, we see the whole showdown when he sends all the sound fusion to destroy
which is a very interesting scene.
To destroy the image that he did become a sellout in a way, to go back to what he was at the beginning of the movie, what he loved, and that was just satellites. So I did see somewhat of a character arc, going back to just his genuine love, because he lost sight of who he was.
All right, I can see that. Speaking on Bradley Cooper's character,
he had a fallout with the military, but it wasn't fully fleshed out at that point. It was like, what happened? We just know that he has beef and something situation happened. So my character is, okay, that happened. He's jaded. But it's kind of like a new life starting. I was like, okay, he's a guy who's had a lot of experience, but he's just cynical. And we did hear the line, you're a cynic. I get it. But and that's where I just saw his character. It's okay, he has room to grow. What made him this jaded in a way, and what will happen for him to get back to the point of just being I don't want to say normal guy, just to who he was and what made him happy.
But kind of to a civilian again. Yeah. Removing himself really from the world he become a part of. I asked that because Bradley Cooper is the star of this movie. He is the leading man. He's what ties everyone together. He drives the plot forward. He is the leading person. He was not my favorite character by any means. I thought that very much Rachel McAdams' character had more, I guess, layers, more interesting dynamics to what was going on with her. I agreed very much on the path her character was taking. It was a little crazy and like you could feel the pressure on her all the time, but she did a wonderful job, and I just really felt like her character was completely fleshed out. On top of that, Woody, her husband,
for as little as he said,
such a fun character that I don't feel we get to see that often. I feel like the closest thing we get to see to this is like characters like Groot, where they're like the silent sidekick, but like this to be used in a very serious way, and then also in the comic way of when they added the subtitles. in that one towards the end scene with him, I thought he was such a fun character. Those two, I could understand why the actors would come on board, because those were such fun things to explore.
Yeah, and on top of Tracy and Woody, I loved Allison Ing. I loved her character. She was very, up and coming, very positive, and for being such a young age, well decorated already, and having that respect. I liked the side characters to the point where it made me upset at Brian for tainting them in the wrong ways. Like, what made you so mean to these nice people? Why did you treat these people like garbage? And that's what frustrated me with Brian. It's like, these are great people. What did you do to them?
I think that on top of that, what was kind of frustrating for me was that his character, especially, like, I'm not gonna lie, Allison was a little bit much for me to take at some points. They introduced her with a very, like, not only was she extremely snappy, but they even, like, filmed her. Like, it was a very, like, jerky, quick shots to introduce her.
She's very frenetic.
And she was a lot sometimes, where I was kind of like, you need to take a breath. I don't know if this is you pushing, because it took me out of the film at certain moments.
Yeah,
but on top of that,
make it a triple.
I didn't feel like they dropped the ball a little bit with her, because by a quarter of the way through, halfway through, I did really like her. I liked that she caught Brian's character, even though it was in a very coincidental way. I liked that she caught him. I liked that she confronted him. I liked that she was willing to walk away. When I'm talking about she was willing to walk away from her job, like in the car, she wanted out. All of those aspects I liked. I didn't understand why we didn't see her in any way, shape, or form try. Once Brian has his demise and we think he's in danger, I didn't understand why she didn't come in and help him, especially with the fact that she knew that there was this video out there that was very incriminating. I didn't understand how that didn't get brought in the picture through her. They portrayed her to be a very smart, charismatic, fun woman who has just a really pure sense to the world. And I didn't see her bring that through at the end. Their relationship was so contingent on him changing, which just kind of it made her seem not weak, but almost not thought of towards the end of the movie.
Did you like her relationship with Brian? Did you think Allison and Brian were a good fit, especially she's so new in this position and he's so jaded in this position? He's more experienced in that way.
I think that by the end of the movie, I liked them. I'm getting a little lost in my own bias because when I entered this movie, I already had a little bit of a problem with Emma Stone having a romantic relationship with Bradley Cooper, just because it's just a current tick that's bothering me right now, where young actresses keep having like the love of their lives that they're trying to get to grow up with older men. You look at Emma Stone in this movie, you look at her in Birdman with Norton, like it's a constant thing. You look at Bradley Cooper doing the two films recently with Jennifer Lawrence, there's a lot of this completely ignoring the age gap and having 20-something-year-old women with much older guys, and it's a current tick, so it bothered me. On top of that, in the very beginning, there was a couple scenes that I didn't feel were quite motivated in the right direction. For instance, she hits on him very, very quickly, and she addresses him, and she's like, well, she says something along the lines of like, why would a woman dump you? Very, very quickly into meeting him, which to me was completely against her character, who was a diligent worker, and I didn't think she would cross that line with him right away. And then when he hits on her back, she shies away at the bar and walks off and delivers drinks. And so that to me didn't compute. I was kind of like, So are you really forward or are you not? Am I supposed to feel like this is instantaneous chemistry, or are we building a relationship on friendship? That dynamic was not clear to me. I will say that by the end, I did like them together. I also think that's partially because one of the themes that I get oftentimes from Mr. Crowe is that people, despite attraction, infatuation, or even love, despite all those things, he kind of has an idea of the fate or the destiny or where these people actually belong.
Okay.
And I think you can see that a lot with Rachel McAdams' character, where I do think that he acknowledges that she really loves Bradley Cooper's character, but she can still love her husband and know that that's where she's supposed to be, and that's where fate has kind of taken her.
I liked how Tracy addresses to Brian what his problems were and why he didn't work out with their relationship. So I did love Tracy in that sense. Bringing it, she was the type of person to remind the audience who he was back then, and Allison was the type of woman to remind him who he is now and what we kind of want out of Brian to change in that way. I did love Allison though, because I loved her personality and I loved her strong views, morals, and values that she had. Whether it be, workforce, the Hawaiian culture, she was very proud of it, despite how little she was technically Hawaiian and whatnot. She was very proud of where she grew up, how she grew up, and the whole history of that. I love that. And what I didn't like about Brian was like, you're gonna ruin that, and it's gonna taint her views of what she so strongly believes in. I just found her character and personality entertaining.
Oh, yeah, one of my favorite scenes in this movie is her dance with Bill Murray, which I just found was so fun and was a weird element that they added to her character, where somehow it still fit. It still fit versus, like, I think that the typical one of these characters, you've got if you just put down the basics, it is a woman fighter pilot that is top of her class and a star guard. You kind of are, and that she's like very advanced. The generic way of portraying that person is like, kind of on the more rigid end, very serious, like type A, very little room for fun unless she's like unless you get the one scene where she's like completely wasted. Like, I feel like I've seen that scenario a lot. This to me was interesting because she was very goal oriented. She obviously done well. She's also very perky, talks to her mom, and like then has this weird random dance with Bill Murray. And to me that was a fun take on it, because I do think you can have both of those sides. So I liked her character as well. So I have a lot of love for the supporting characters.
Yeah.
And then we get to Bradley Cooper.
Well, okay. For all of my issues, and I don't want to say issues, but my things about this movie that I didn't like was I felt there were a lot of different storylines that were still going on. Audience were trying to figure out throughout the whole movie, and that took me out as a viewer. Because we're figuring out what happened back in Kabul. We're figuring out what's happening now in Hawaii in this whole somewhat conspiracy or secret covert operation that's going on. We're figuring out his past relationship with Tracy and his now daughter. Was that a surprise to you? I found that very predictable.
I found it very predictable. I liked the element that the daughter added to Rachel McAdams' character. I thought that was a really interesting layer of like her urgency of wanting to kind of introduce him to her kids, of her wanting to bring him home, of her being able to tell him in the end that like you could just tell this is what she needed him to know, even though he already knows. Great layer. But then the final scene with the daughter and Bradley Cooper, huge problem with.
Really? Okay. What bothered you about the end scene?
Well, for lots of things. Number one, I don't think it was kind of creepy for the first like 10 seconds. If you're taking it that this girl doesn't know who this guy is and he's staring at her outside of a dance class, that would scare the living daylights out of me. If I was anywhere and some guy that somehow knew, I don't know, my mom showed up and was just staring at me alone, I would be terrified. I don't know how that's not a general reaction. Also, to me, I'll give them credit for, like, they had them share different looks throughout the film and, like, the mentioning of the 13 years or whatnot. But this daughter seemed very happy with her life, or, like, they seemed like, oh, your mom's gonna have a fight again. But they really did seem to love their mom and dad.
They seemed like a happy family.
Yeah, and they love her dad. And I just didn't like the reaction. I didn't like the reaction of, okay, let's get past the fact that it's creepy to have some random guy staring at you through a window. But also that translates into overall joy and like ecstasy that like, oh yay, I have a different dad. Like, that seems like a very unrealistic jump in my mind. Like, it was not hinted in the family that she didn't feel a connection to Woody. That to me was not implied. So that, like, just as a person, I feel like if I was completely happy in my family life and someone came up and was kind of like, I'm your dad, my immediate reaction would not be, yes, I want to hug you. It would be confusion, sadness, or anger. Like,
or a mix of all of them.
Yes. It just would in no way, shape, or form go to happiness.
Right.
Unless you had like a horrible family situation.
I completely agree. I saw the end. In a way, I do see it in two ways. That if you're just going in and you're finally happy at the fact that she now knows that he's her father, yeah, you might have this like, okay, all right, now I know that, you know, the whole just, I don't want to say cheesy, but the acceptance, like, okay, we're family. We have a connection there. On your point, I didn't see a lot of the daughter and and Bradley Cooper's Brian's reaction and interactions with each other to get that type of result. I didn't think that was deserved. We didn't see airtime to build that chemistry for her to get to that level of happiness.
Yeah. It was a very greedy scene for the Bradley Cooper character.
Yes.
It was were like, oh, well, we have this man who we've brought you along his whole journey. He's made mistakes. He's done whatnot. But you just need to know that deep down, he's a good guy who cares that he's a father, because we don't want to leave that undone. And they just looked at it almost like from his perspective. Like, it was almost like a dream sequence of what he would want to happen, but would never actually happen.
And what also for his character, he doesn't deserve that. He doesn't deserve leaving his then girlfriend Tracy and putting her everything she was through. Granted, he didn't know that she was his daughter, but I felt as a character he didn't deserve to have that happy family, because he chose all those bad decisions and he did all those bad things in the end.
Yeah, I could see what you're saying on that, definitely. Because
I just don't think that he deserved to be part of their family.
I don't think that. I think that I like the acknowledgement of him wanting to try, or like acknowledging that he has a daughter. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. That scene just isn't realistic. It bothered me. But I don't think that the layer of adding that they had this child and he didn't know about it, I don't think that's unrealistic. Yeah. I think I'm fine with that story element. I'm just not happy with that scene.
Okay. Moving on. What did you think of his whole military scene and he had that whole situation with Kabul. He saw the missile but refused to do anything about it, therefore was left by his boss in a way, left for dead. So we had that history. And then now, did you see that connection whatsoever?
The connection between like his boss, the CEOs, I think it's a plot that's definitely blurred in out, like secret hand signals and whatnot throughout this whole film. Thing I liked, that Bill Murray had his own angle on it, that his interpretation was some sort of getting even motivation, that his joy in sending a missile up there was very much, it wasn't the normal maniacal laughter. It was more of like, look what I've done. The argument that he is just trying to better their country. I liked those elements. I think, as I said, character work for Crowe, for supporting characters, great. Bill Murray's character, very interesting. Different take on the powerful,
corrupt leader. Not a stereotypical view of what a corrupt person would do.
Yes. But then it comes down to his more of connection with Brian's character, Bradley Cooper, where I never really, I guess this is going to get to one of my Bradley Cooper problems, which is we get that he's a dreamer in the beginning. Then we understand that he seems to be tied to this arrival, this prophecy or legend or whatnot about an arrival that's going to, I think it says something about like there's going to be lots of revenge sex and then they're going to form into tears, something along those lines. But we get dreamer, we get a guy who's messed up and has done something wrong with the military. Then we find out he's still doing things wrong. He's still selling his soul. Although somewhere scattered in there, he has like a strange emotional detachment from this corrupt line to be like, but I love you, Allison, and I can go for this in an extremely optimistic point of view. And then he messes up, and then at the very last moment, he has like a change of heart for Allison, more than the need to do something. To my opinion, it was for her rather than the need to do something for good for the whole world,
everyone.
Which was, I was kind of like, I don't understand.
See, my whole thing with the whole missile launching scene, we see him technically putting up code. I was like, I'm not that technical. We see him actually executing the actual launch. Seeing those skills for his character, I believed that, yes, he could be part of the military. That was his job. As a person, I mean, you can deal with a lot of a-holes in whatever field you're in. If they have the skills, you can do it. But as a person, I did not like him. And I didn't see the point why he was still part of the military. The only reason why he was in the military is because he had the skill set.
Yeah. And it's hard to talk about because he wasn't my favorite character.
As the main protagonist of a movie, we didn't really root for him.
Yeah, and
which is an issue.
And I'm not saying you can't be the like tragic hero or the the kind of darker person that we root for. I'm not saying you have to be a perfect human being full of charisma and hope to lead a movie. I just also think that you have to be consistent on your arc, if that makes sense. And his sometimes was very, it was too scattered for me. I didn't know if I was watching a mercenary who was still kind of a military mercenary and corrupt. I didn't know if I was watching someone who was trying to figure out his relationship with his ex, who was trying to be in a relationship with Allison. And maybe that was the point, that we're just supposed to see this very confused person who finally gets a sense of himself at the end. And if that was the point, okay, but it just didn't carry through for me.
It was a difficult way to get through it. Another thing that I had a hard time understanding was his whole Hawaiian culture and how he dealt with the Hawaiian natives of the islands. I mean, we had Bumpy I'm sorry if I'm going to butcher his last name, but Bumpy, who's an actual real Hawaiian national elitist leader who's in charge of agricultural restoration and on Hawaii. And I did like the fact that they used real political natives in this film. I mean, and also for film telling purposes and even for the film industry, it's good to have those connections and also just literally show them. What I didn't like about Brian was the fact that we got the two sides of him. He built all those connections to the natives of the island, but then literally making all these agreements and actually having the front that they are friends, and then 2 seconds later turns around and is like, no, it was all for business.
Yeah.
And again, another reason why he was two-faced in a way.
Yeah, no, completely. Definitely taken in by this game. To me, just we didn't see someone trying to escape a game. Like, we didn't see him trying to get out until that very last second, and it wasn't like trying to get out. It was like, well, I quit. And it was like, but not even like, I quit because I'm fed with all of you and this is what you're doing is completely wrong. It was like, I quit because I want to be with Allison.
Yeah.
Which to me, I was like, ooh, that's big. That's like you're talking about weapons being on satellites and you
can't sell the sky. But I get the whole the reason why they did it, so they can have the gate and space to actually conduct the research. But they promise, so long as the research isn't using military weapons, which we know as an audience, actually, it was just for that.
I thought there were a couple elements that I thought were very fun and not explored. I do now want to see a movie that's very much more about this conflict between Hawaiian kind of like nationalism and the military being stationed
government
there.
Influence.
And I think this is a movie where that's the background, but it's not what the movie's about. And I now want to see a movie about what that is about. On top of that, yes, there's a very strong theme about money getting you power, and that kind of loophole that was found and almost exploited to create a world-changing event, which would have been to have the satellite that was weaponized by private enterprise.
Yep.
Those are very interesting stories. Very, very interesting stories.
Again, I wanted to learn more about that and unfortunately, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but there were so many different stories that were going on in this movie that I wanted to spend time figuring out this story, but also I was still dealing with all the other ones that I'm still trying to figure out. So it was pulling me as an audience member in so many different directions that I couldn't enjoy everything that was going down.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of them didn't come full circle.
Yes. And I think a lot of them were just wrapped up in a way, but not fully realized. Yes. In that sense. But I did like how they did have some Hawaiian influence. I mean, you are in Hawaii. There is the whole media backlash that they didn't use it or enough. But Cameron Crowe does. He did months and months of research, and he built real connections and relationships with the people. And filming this gave job opportunities to the people there and the culture, and it brought Hawaiian culture to the forefront. And again, it was more in a positive light. I didn't see anything negative about it.
I agree. I did not take away any. As I said, it heightened my curiosity about Hawaii. It didn't create a negative view in my perspective.
Yes. And I mean, we have a lot of strong opinions about this film. We do have to get into the whole response of the critical response that this film is enduring. Do you agree with media on some aspects? Do you disagree?
I think if you just look at like the Rotten Tomato scores, or where things have been kind of just like those type of things, where this is getting around, I would say a 19.
19 on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm not giving it
a B on Cinema Score.
Yeah. I'm not giving it either of those. I'm giving it somewhere around 30, 40 on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm giving it like a C Cinema Score.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that character-wise, very interesting. I didn't get enough of all these different stories. The structure of it, I didn't really like the structure of this story. I didn't like where they told me it was starting out and then it didn't go that way. So then I had to readjust myself to the story they were now telling. And then certain things just weren't justified. That to me is not good structure and it ruined some of the storytelling. I thought the acting though was great. I thought that Cameron Crowe is famous for giving very like heartfelt, kind of like, I'm going to show you my heart speeches that are very like, not verbal diarrhea, but like, I'm just going to tell you everything I feel, even though you might think you might not agree. So dialogue wise, there are excerpts of this where I'm like, that is a fantastically written monologue scene, whatnot. Like, that's why I'm not going to destroy it, because it wasn't like everything in this felt to me completely forced or unoriginal. There was original elements, and the pacing was fine.
Yeah, I thought the pacing was great.
Color was great. Looks was great. I think that we have to like give some acknowledgement to Richard.
Hawaii is beautiful.
To Mr. Linklater, because I swear I see Boyhood and like visual references to it in like every movie. I don't know why. It's like brainwashed me or something.
I think they use the environment of Hawaii in an amazing place. I mean, we saw the military base, we saw the hills, we saw the ocean. I mean, we used the elements of what the visual backdrop of Hawaii was, and I want to go to Hawaii. And I had no issues with that.
And he's creative. I mean, I think there's creative elements in this movie, like decorating their lawn for Christmas, to the work party, to
there was a good balance of humor throughout.
Yeah, of visual representations of things versus just dialogue heavy scenes. I thought that there was a very good mix of all these things, which typically make a really great film.
Yeah.
Someone did not direct like the angle of this story well enough for me. And unfortunately that does land on Crowe and on the script editors. I don't put it on the actors.
No.
And I don't put it on the casting. I put it on what the story they told was and what they framed it to be and then what they gave us.
Exactly. I think the issue of the film was the storytelling, not of the actors, not of the performances. And the media is criticizing Emma Stone for being half Asian, half Hawaiian, when we know her as an actual person is all Caucasian. That has no reflection of what the performance was or what the storytelling was, because her character is very proud and of her Hawaiian culture, and actually her character was based on a real person who was redhead, who was frustrated that on an outward appearance she wasn't Hawaii. She wasn't look part of the culture Hawaiian culture, and she was just genuinely upset about that. And that was where Emma Stone's character came in, that because she doesn't fit the physical profile doesn't mean that she can't be that person.
Yeah, that's something I like very personally kind of identify with, so I think it's easier for me to see that, but I completely agree.
Right. And I don't understand why the media is blowing this up, because I think if you add race to it, that's always a sensitive topic.
I think this isn't the casting of Emma Stone and using Hawaii. This isn't a new or even new topic. I think it's definitely been in the media recently, and I think that there's merit in it. I think that there are certain movies where you look at them and it's very clear that the characters they are saying they are not. There is a line. And to me, that line is believability. And believability to me includes how a person speaks, holds themselves, and looks and
has
thinks.
Values.
Yes. If I can watch them and in some corner of my mind believe that yes, they can be that, then it works.
Right.
If there is a line, you're telling me something and I'm like, nope, not that, then it doesn't.
Yeah, and this is
I don't need a blood test.
No, this is not a new thing in industry filmmaking aspects. I mean, I just have to throw out a few examples. Johnny Depp played Tonto and Lone Ranger, who is more Native American. Rooney Mara, who is casted as Tiger Lily in the upcoming Pan, which we will definitely cover for Anatomy. She's supposed to be Native American. We know she is not. Jim Sturgis played Hai Ju Chang in Cloud Atlas, an Asian role. He is not. He's British. Natalie Wood played a Puerto Rican in West Side Story. We know she is not. There's so many people and actors, actresses who have been cast in roles that are other races besides their own. But again, that doesn't show and it doesn't hinder their personalities that they're portraying, their performances.
I mean, I think that you name that list, and like, there's certain ones to me that stick out more than others. Like talking
but
about,
it's not a new thing.
Yeah, but like, you know, it does. You can get kind of into the line of that, like the people you mentioned. Like, it's just about how they portray it, and if they can embody it and like show, and just, I don't know, believable. Like, if someone could say, oh, actually, like, their mom was this, and you were like, oh, okay, that's enough for me.
Right.
If like there's no way you're ever gonna believe it, then you should cast someone who's more believable.
Right. And that, unfortunately, that was one of the things that was going against this movie, the media going for the race issue. But also Amy Pascal, who was a Sony executive. Her, back a few months ago in February 2015, her emails got leaked to the public, and she's a high up exec at Sony, and it was about her having issues with Aloha in the film. They did different screenings in New York and then one here in Manhattan in California, and one of her emails got leaked saying, and I do have to read this because it is relevant, the issues that she had with the film. She said, scores are still the same, way worse in New York, and there's no more to do. Cameron never really changed anything. Cameron Crowe being the director. People don't like people in movies who flirt with married people or married people who flirt. The satellites make no sense. The gate makes no sense. I'm never starting a movie again when the script is ridiculous and we all know it. I don't care how much I love the director and the actors. It never, not even once, ever works. And for syntax, that doesn't even work either. But my thing is granted, that was an email that wasn't supposed to go out to the public, obviously. But being a position in an executive position and in a leadership role, okay, you can have issues with films. A lot of people do. But it's about having resolutions to those issues. This is just an email. And I don't know the whole story. But being a leader... You go about, how do we fix these? Not just state everything that's wrong.
Oh, but this isn't to him.
No.
So I don't think you have to stick how to fix them to him. Right. That being said, like, if you talk about her issues, I think some of them are still a little bit present. I think that, for me, the satellites did make sense. It was an interesting plot line that, again, felt like it was sprinkled, but it did make sense. It didn't make sense why the footage of the little kid that's very coincidentally in there isn't pulled back up as evidence, but that's another story. The flirtation with married people, I think, is interesting, because I'm going to disagree with Pascal that while it might not make people the most comfortable, I think that it's a very interesting perspective, because I'm sure it happens.
Yeah.
Like,
it happens a lot. Especially if that relationship, as believable as that was, they were in love at one point.
Yeah. I think that, yes, it makes things a little uncomfortable sometimes. I also think it makes it it's a stronger choice that she stays with her husband when when she does flirt with someone. I'm glad they kept in the movie. Because if we just saw a Bradley Cooper character kind of coming into the picture and reinserting himself in her life while she pulled away to be with her husband, then her character needs to be cut down a lot more. Like, that's a huge change. Like, that's a big element of this story. Is there still the way she can open up to him, the way she needs someone to talk to, and he's fulfilling that need for part of this movie. So I'm going to say I don't agree with her on that. Her overall thing that this maybe wasn't the great movie and did need adjustments, I will agree with.
Yeah, I agree with that. But Amy Pascal is no longer with Sony after that was leaked. Also, just to add a little bit about it, she stated that she did have some technical issues with the film, but also in adding to her email, she says at least the marketing departments at both studios have something to sell. It looks big and glossy. We have this movie in for a lot of dough, and we better look at it that way. So she saw it in a business standpoint.
Yeah.
Still release this film.
I mean, you can't blame her.
I can't.
It's her job. It's her job, or was her job, to make a studio money. That's what she was hired for. That is part of her job. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, how did you just look at this for that? Sorry, that's what she does. And she's also right, or should have been right, between all the names. This, I think, is an easy movie to promote.
Yeah,
because
you have the talent.
You have the talent in all areas, behind the camera, in front of the camera. It's a romantic setting. I would assume it's kind of like a marketing person's dream. You have two people who had not only are fantastic stars, but have had great past years. American Sniper.
Yeah. Birdman and Emma Stone.
These are A-listers that are
heck, even Rachel McAdams is in big. I mean, she's going to be on HBO and True Detective. I mean, it's like these are big names.
Yes, and they're
Alec Baldwin.
They're big names and they're current names.
Yes,
they're currently working a lot in respected things. So she's completely right on those. Unfortunately, this movie is not making money.
It's not. Yes,
it's
very
at
unfortunate.
It opened to a 10 million, and I think it's now at around 13. The budget, from what I found, has not been released, unless you found it.
I saw somewhere around 34 million.
This movie's not
maybe with DVD sales it might,
but you're talking about plus they put a lot of P&A in this movie.
Yes, they did. I saw
lot.
Billboards,
I'm guessing
promotions everywhere.
Probably
for a romantic comedy movie, there was a lot of promotion for it.
Yes. And that was because that was what they had to try and sell, but then they got attacked by the press right away. And as much as they tried to force the marketing down there, a lot of people are just not going to buy it, especially now this weekend. There are other things coming out that have more positive reviews. Aloha's going to be washed away.
It is. Aloha.
Exactly. But yeah, so not making in the numbers that I'm sure anyone would have predicted while in production of this film.
4 months in Hawaii.
They all got a wonderful vacation and got to be with all their friends because they work with each other all the time.
And it gave the locals at Hawaii a place that it gave job opportunities to, and they had a lot of Hawaiian individuals a part of this film. They were very involved. So it was good in a sense that thematically, okay, we've already discussed that. But industry-wise, it was good exposure to the Hawaiian culture.
It made me definitely more curious about all of the layers of Hawaii. So, will you be watching this movie again?
I might. Only because I liked the side characters. I like the personalities. If you get over the fact that a lot of the stories aren't fully wrapped and fully developed, it's not a terrible movie. It's not the worst movie out there.
No. I think that in this movie there's some great scenes. I can see some people really trying to steal some of these monologues from people. The relationships are fun. The characters, a lot of them are very interesting. I can see not only why the actors would want to be in this movie, but I can see the story that Cameron Crowe was trying to tell. I could see the struggle of this man who is at a crossroads of his life where he's trying to move forward, and he's dealing with the life he has created for himself by his own choices and trying to navigate through what has become more a negative situation, a negative lifestyle. His story is compelling. Like, to be at the position that this character is involved with billionaires and space and safety, but of course his ex is there, and now there's the person who he never thought he would be with, who he's falling in love with.
Yeah.
Like, that is interesting. I understand the stories and his interpretation of fate and culture. It just, unfortunately, it wasn't realized fully enough in this movie. But I feel bad because I feel like he is taking a lot of heat and apologizing tremendously. And like, it's kind of like he tried, and Cameron Crowe is not someone who pushes out mega budget films for a paycheck.
Yeah, and it's not like he's developing something every year. It's like, okay, he had a bad film this year. Next year, he's gonna be great.
Interesting idea, interesting characters.
Yeah, it is just unfortunate because you mentioned that Cameron Crowe apologized. He did send out an actual apology to the audience. He says in his letter, "I have heard your words and your disappointment, and I offer you a heartfelt apology to all those who felt this was an odd or misguided casting choice for Allison Ng. We are extremely proud to present the island, the locals of the film community, with many jobs for over 4 months. And Emma Stone was chief amongst those who did tireless research, and if any part of her fine characterization has caused consternation and controversy, I am the one to blame. Don't be upset at the fact that her character is Asian. It's unfortunate that Cameron Crowe has gotten to the point where he has to feel that he has to issue an apology.
Yeah, it is.
For having already well-respected movies out there.
Yeah. So I will probably not be buying this movie.
No.
I loved seeing the actors in it. The thing is, I look at this and there's no one in this movie that I'm like truly like disappointed in.
No.
I'm kind of like, I see where you were going. Good job to everyone involved. Guys, it didn't work.
Right. If you want to watch this movie, I think in the end, you're left on a feel-good, somewhat happy note.
No.
For a romantic movie. Chick flick. Chick flick. And I think that's it. If you're going to really dissect it and go into it and see all the problems, yeah, you might. But feel good emotional level, it was fun. It was feel good.
Yes.
Okay. How would you rank this amongst other Cameron Crowe's films, though? Where would you personally rank this?
Below.
Below.
I love a lot of Cameron Crowe's films.
Okay.
So, yes, it is not. It's
not his strongest. See,
it's not what I'm going to reference when I'm talking about him.
I only ask because me personally, I find Cameron Crowe hit or miss with me.
Okay.
There are some films I really love, Say Anything, Jerry Maguire, Vanilla Sky. There are others I didn't really like. Almost Famous. A lot of people loved Almost Famous. And I personally was one who really didn't. So I
don't understand.
I know, but it's like that again. This is just my personal opinion. Cameron Crowe is hit or miss with me.
Okay.
And I don't think this was his worst film.
Okay. Do you think that? Which one do you rate higher, Almost Famous or Aloha?
See, I couldn't get through Almost Famous. I tried. I admit I tried watching it because I know it is a cult classic amongst people in pop culture, but I couldn't get through it.
Oh, this is gonna have to be a different discussion.
That's a whole nother.
That's crazy.
That's a whole nother controversy. But that's me. Send your hate tweets to me. All right. Thank you, Sarah, for
bigger question. Above or below?
Everybody.
We bought a zoo.
I didn't see what we bought a zoo either. So, okay. But thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed our dissection despite everything in this film. I mean, it was fun to watch here and there. Sarah, no one can follow you on Twitter.
No, but you can find me here, Popcorn Talk,
Yeah.
Box Office Breakdown. I'm at AfterBuzz TV, cover things like Penny Dreadful.
Yes.
Marisa over here. Also, Game of Thrones. So exciting stuff in the scripted drama world.
Yeah, and you can follow all of us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those fun places at The Popcorn Talk. You can follow Anatomy of a Movie on Twitter at Movie Anatomy. You can follow me on Twitter at Serafini TV. Follow all of us. We have a lot of fun summer dissections coming up. Too many to name, honestly.
There's so much in the box office.
I'm really excited for the summer. There are big movies coming out. So tune in for those. Thank you all. We will see you for our next dissection.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.